Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hi, it's Gemma here. How are you? And welcome to the first Beyond English Fluency Coffee Chat Tuesday. I'm really excited to do this every single week. I've been going live every Tuesday for the past couple of weeks, and now it's something that I am going to be doing regularly. So I will have these Coffee Chat Tuesdays every single week at the same time. So that is 11 a.m. Eastern New York time. So yes, I'm really looking forward to being here today. Welcome. Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know where you are listening in from. Where are you right now? So yeah, welcome. It's really good to be here and to share a new topic with you. So the last few weeks, as I said, I've been going live. And the first week I spoke about vocabulary and how we can actually understand the difference between our passive and active vocabulary and really expand our understanding of language. So that was what I did a couple of weeks ago, speaking all about vocabulary. And then we also went live last week and talking about the different difficult barriers that you face when working in an international company or with international clients and different cultures, and the different barriers that can come up. So things like language and communication. Now, today it's a slightly different topic. I wanted to talk to you all about using English in a more high pressure situation and really how we can, if we make a mistake, what do we do about it? And I know one thing, and really the theme of today is around failure. Now, even just saying that word, it can induce some difficult feelings, and failure is always difficult. Now, failing if you are having an interview in English, or if you feel like a failure when you use English, that's really what I'm going to be talking about and what you can do about that. So if you've just joined me, welcome. I'm Gemma Keeling. I'm a linguist, an English teacher, communication coach, and I have over 14 years of experience helping professionals achieve communication clarity and confidence. And I help especially those working in international environments or want to do that, and typically those that are designers and working in the tech industry. But I think in these sessions, no matter what job you have, it will be a topic that you can relate to and you will find interesting. So perfect. Okay, let me know. I think we have a few people watching, so great to have you here. Let me know where you are watching from. If you're watching the replay, great to have you here again, Ricardo. Lovely to see you. Hello. Yeah, so today's topic, I'm really going to talk about failure and your weaknesses. So let me know, and maybe this is going to be an easy question for you, but what is your weakness in English communication? Is that an easy question for you to answer? What is your weakness in English communication? So what is your weakness? Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about failure in my own situation. So as you might know, I live in Mexico, and I studied Spanish at university. Now, learning Spanish has not been, I would say, a simple journey. It hasn't been easy, just like I imagine for you in English. And what I mean by that is my level of Spanish has really fluctuated. It's gone up and down. And it also depends on how much I was using the language. So I studied Spanish at university, and studying Spanish at university did mean I was able to reach a high level. I lived in Spain. I was living with a Spanish family, able to use Spanish in lots of different situations in my daily life. I was speaking with the children in the family and able to really feel relatively confident. And I was able to pass my exams, and I have a degree in Spanish. Now, the problem was after that, I went back to the UK and I stopped using the language almost from 100 to 0. Now, I know that might be the case for you as an English learner. You might have lived in an English-speaking country, or maybe you had to study English for an exam, you reached a good level or a really high level, even like me, almost to the point where you would say you were a fluent speaker, just like me in Spanish. And what happened is I went back to England, and of course, I became worse in Spanish. I didn't practice the language at all. And I mean, I didn't read any books. I didn't listen to maybe a little bit of Spanish music, but really I went to 0. A big mistake, but that's life. It happens. And then I am now living in Mexico. And when I first came to Mexico, I really felt like a failure in Spanish. And that was because I had gone from, a really high level to almost back to 0. And people would say, but didn't you study Spanish at university? Yeah, I did. So for me, that was my own feeling like I had failed. Now, when we believe, if we make a mistake, and we feel really bad about that, if we believe the mistakes that we made in the language, so of course, because I hadn't practiced for a long time, I did make a lot of mistakes when I didn't really understand everything, and I was making mistakes in the language. But what happens is when we believe that mistakes and our setbacks, a setback of being a really good level, almost going backwards, when we believe that that is linked to who we are as a person and our self-worth, then even the smallest of failures will trigger a feeling of shame. And really the urge to give up. It's too difficult. Or what happens is we withdraw. Now, what that might look like for you is you are working in English, but you have the opportunity to speak up in a meeting, or maybe you are able to present, but you withdraw and you actually say, no, I don't want to do this. And you hide away, and you don't want to have those horrible feelings. So in the context of language learning or using English in an international environment, when our mistakes or our setbacks are seen as reflections of our self-worth, it can really lead to significant emotional challenges, really hinder and make our progress slower and more difficult. So you might think, okay, what is, mindset? It's not really that important to me. I just wanted to share this perspective because it might be part of the reason why you are finding it difficult to reach the level of fluency or the level of confidence in English that you would like to have or that you need to have. So yeah, that's the first thing I wanted to share a little bit about. So my question is, what is your weakness in using English or English communication? What do you think is your weakness? And perfect. So Ricardo has said, using technical words. Okay, yeah, using technical words. Maybe you can explain a little bit more about that. Is it that you are finding it difficult to understand them, put them into sentences, to use them? Let me know. Hi, Taha. Great to have you here. How are you? It's good to see you. Let me know, what do you think is a weakness in your English communication? So today, as I mentioned, I'm talking a little bit around our feelings of failure and how that relates to maybe the progress that you're making. And these are our weekly Coffee Chat Tuesdays. I'm going to be doing these every single Tuesday at the same time. So I know that this time is, let me know, is it morning for you? Is it afternoon? Is it evening? Maybe it's a little bit late for you depending on where you live. So I was just telling you about my experience of my own feelings of failure in Spanish. So what that might look like as well is, like I said, we want to withdraw, and we might also, hi Roberto, great to have you here. The feeling of shame of speaking up, we might want to not maybe go for that interview. Or it could be that we don't want to speak up. We have the opportunity to progress in our career and we say, no, I would love to do this, but it's too scary. So what can happen, the reasons for this and what it might look like, is we can have a fear of judgment. So as a learner, you may fear that you are being judged by others for the mistakes that you're making. And for me, that was really the case. And maybe I was being judged just a little bit because I had a really high level of Spanish and it really deteriorated. And I actually talk even more about this on my podcast, The Design of Communication. And I go into more information about what happens and some of the reasons and how that relates. But really, a lot of that fear was around the fear of being judged. And I was worried about the mistakes I was making, of I should be a certain way, putting those expectations on myself. And the worry of maybe being incompetent, of not having the level that I needed, or a reluctance to speak up and participate in conversations. So that could be one, what it looks like if you have a fear in English or fear of judgment. Another is that you might avoid speaking opportunities. So I have spoken to many that work in design and tech, and this is something that I see come up by so many people, so many professionals, and that is individuals will avoid situations where they have to speak in English, even if it is necessary for their professional growth. And that avoidance comes from the fear of making mistakes and feeling ashamed in front of others. I remember once speaking to a designer and she told me she had to deliver an important presentation. And on that day, she actually, instead of participating, she took a holiday. She used her vacation time so she didn't have to participate. That was really avoiding the situation. And I've seen it, maybe that's an extreme case, but I have seen it where, that might be like, oh yeah, that's me too. I've definitely been in that situation where I didn't put my hand up or I didn't participate. And I was maybe the right person to speak up at work, but I didn't. So that can also be due to our fear of avoiding situations and that feeling of being a failure in a language. Okay, we have a few. Fernando said, okay, so I asked the question, what is your weakness in English? And Fernando said, doing interviews in English because of the fear of failure. Yeah, and it's very real. It's a very real fear because it is a high pressured situation and also a high stakes situation. Having an interview, we really want to get the job. And it's not just the fear, the difficulty in making mistakes in English that is hard, but also even if you have an interview in your first language, you have that fear of failure. You really want the job. So that's a really good example. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Fernando. Okay, so as I mentioned, what can failure look like, or what can happen if we have this feeling of, connecting our mistakes and setbacks to our self-worth and who we are as a person? So we have that fear of being judged. We also will avoid speaking up. And then we also have a loss of confidence. And for me, that was definitely the case because I knew I had a really good level of Spanish before, and now I don't. I lost a lot of confidence. And also in my mind, I started to become quite critical of myself. Why can't you say that? You know this. And that self-talk became quite negative of, you used to know this before. Why are you able to do this now? So it can also look like that. And that self-criticism and shame is really detrimental for our confidence. That negative self-talk of, I'm not good enough, I will never learn this, I'm a failure, I can't speak up, and you can get quite negative. And then also, you can also reach a point where you fear any feedback. And it might be that you don't want to speak up because you don't want to hear the negative feedback from others or the critical feedback. And what's the problem here is you are missing out on that constructive input because you become so negative towards yourself and you just don't want to listen to any more negativity. And that consequently will mean that you're missing the valuable opportunity of, we make mistakes and then getting some input. Actually, instead of saying this is a better way to say that. And what would happen is I would feel really embarrassed if I made a mistake, like I shouldn't be making a mistake. And that is that perfectionism that will come. Let me know if any of this is relatable, if you're like, okay, yes, I've definitely experienced some of what you're saying. Let me know, just say yes, I can relate to what you're saying. Now, this shame that we have is a really powerful emotion. And it happens when we believe our worth as an individual is tied to our language skills. And it makes us feel that we are not enough, that we are not worthy when we make mistakes or struggle with English. Now, shame is different to guilt. Guilt is that feeling of a bad, specific behavior or action, whereas shame is that bad feeling of ourselves as a person for making those mistakes. So that's a little bit about the difference between what is shame and what is guilt. So I'm talking about shame here. Now, if this has ever happened to you, if you have ever, like I mentioned, had those situations where you made a mistake and you become hard on yourself, quite critical, what you need to do, there's a few different steps that I want to share, because it's like, okay, yes, I've experienced this, but what do I do about it? That's the important thing, is how can I move on? Because I don't want to have the impact on my professional advancement. I want to be able to work in an international environment. I want to be able to speak up. I want to have more responsibility, or I want to get a promotion. I want to get a new job. I really want to do that. So what can I do about it? Now, it's important to firstly build our self-awareness. And, I'm going to show just a few things that we can do, and we can discuss this. So the first one is really embracing our mistakes when it comes in language. So I know this is easy to say, that, okay, I need to embrace my mistakes, sure. But one thing we need to know is that mistakes are not only normal, but they are essential for our growth. And as a teacher, I love it when my students make a mistake. I really love it because it's a valuable opportunity to grow. And each mistake is a stepping stone towards improving, and it's okay to stumble. So really the way that I was able to overcome that was seeing that a mistake, failure that I tied to that was a completely normal part of language learning, and it's okay to make mistakes. And I've actually started to embrace those mistakes. It means that we are actively challenging ourselves to grow. Now, it doesn't mean this is easy to do, but it's just taking those steps of seeing each mistake that I make is towards my own growth in the language. And that's completely normal. And then realizing, even in English, even in your native language, you will make mistakes, and that's completely fine. So it's really embracing the mistakes when they happen and really not seeing them as a part of your self-worth. So really differentiating the two of, we can feel this shame around failure, and it really is a very real, difficult feeling. It's really horrible when you do experience that, because that fear of failure is threatening, our survival is under threat. And it's this all-consuming feeling and sensation that can really stop us from even trying to fix our mistakes, because we believe the problem is us rather than the specific behavior or choice. So yeah, we have a few more comments. No, perfect. Okay, let me know what you think about this. So if you do have this feeling around, if you make a mistake, you feel really terrible about it, to the point where maybe you're becoming quite critical, you want to firstly reposition how we feel about making mistakes and really embracing those mistakes. The next is all about changing our perspective. So it's quite similar, but instead of seeing language learning as a really big, daunting task with potential embarrassment, we can reframe that experience as an exciting adventure, an opportunity to connect with people. And having that mindset of, it's not really just about me, but how I can connect with people. And the positive side of that, of what it means for me if I can do this. And embracing that it is a journey of self-discovery and personal development. And I always come back to this: progress over perfection. Progress over perfection. Progress over perfection. It is. Yeah, progress over perfection. Let me bring that down. Yeah, so progress over perfection, 100%. So that's really what I come back to. Then the next thing is, if we are making mistakes and we, for example, say, I'm not good at learning English, or I will never get this right, I'm just not good at grammar. Instead of saying I can't, it's changing that to I'm improving every day, or I'm learning, and shifting that negative self-talk. Now, it's not when the negative talk comes to you that we just completely push it away. And I'm not about turning negative talk into positive talk, but it's really acknowledging, okay, this is what I'm saying, but is this true? And really questioning everything that you say. So when you hear that inner critique say, I'm not good enough, it's really like, okay, you might think that, but is that really the case? Is it that I'm not good enough in the whole of the language? No, probably not. And for me, that was how I was able to address that. I used to be so good at Spanish and now I'm not. Okay, that's just my feeling and just my thought. And my thought is not the reality. So really looking at it from a more logical perspective and looking at is this really the case? So that's another thing, is addressing that negative self-talk. So I have seen also it come up around, I've had someone reach out, and I won't share who this was, but someone on LinkedIn said that I received this message this week. And she said that she participated in some job interviews last year for a tech company. And she wanted to work remotely for an American and a European client. And she said she trained herself for the Q&As. But in that moment, when she was asked the questions, she said that she got very nervous and she wanted to sound more professional, and she was making mistakes, and she got stuck on what she was saying and what she wanted to say. And I think since then, it has made an impact. I'm not 100% sure, but I imagine this has made an impact on her confidence. And she said, I feel the shame of doing something wrong or not being able to express myself. And it stops her. So like I said, if we have this one particular situation, which for her is she was in an interview, she now feels the shame anytime she will speak because she's thinking about this particular situation. When she had a high stakes situation of an interview, and like Fernando said, doing an interview in English because of the fear of failure, because of that situation, she now feels like she is not good at English at all, and that she wants to get started, she wants to improve. She just said, I think I need a jump of faith, a leap of faith to improve my English. And now a lot of the reason is from that particular situation. So what can she do, or what can you do if something like this happens? You really need to isolate that was a single high pressure situation. What can you take from that situation to improve? And really normalize the mistakes that you made and take that as an opportunity for your growth. So like I said, making mistakes is a natural part of the learning progress. And one thing that I've spoken about before is understanding the gap and the gain. And that was a really good book, a book recommendation, The Gap and the Gain. And it's really thinking about, what from that experience did I gain? Not the gap that I have, so not the mistakes that I made, but what was it from that experience that I can take away to help me improve? Or what was it that I actually did well during the interview? It's very normal as human beings to reflect on the negative, but what was it that I did well in that situation? Yes, I made some mistakes. What were those mistakes? And how can I improve those mistakes? So for example, in an interview, it could be that I started making the mistake at this very specific situation. And that could be, I had to share my portfolio and I was speaking. I was fine in that situation. I did quite well in that situation. But what were the areas of my weakness and how can I address them? So it could be, I found it difficult to answer spontaneous questions. I was able to present my ideas and discuss, but when I had to answer difficult questions, that is where I got very nervous. That is the part where I made the mistakes, and that is the part where I need to improve. So it's looking at a situation like that. What are the things that I did well? So I asked the question at the beginning of today's session, what are your weaknesses? And I think this is a relatively easy question for many people, because we always think about, I'm not good enough at this, I need to improve this. But what really are also within those weaknesses exactly, looking at that's a difficult word, specificity of what exactly is it specifically that the mistakes that I'm making. So looking at the mistakes that you made, and instead of, I made a mistake in the whole interview, I found it difficult to express my ideas when I had to answer this one question. Or it could be when I first had to introduce myself in the interview, or when I had to present my ideas. And that is the area where I can grow and where I can improve and where I can develop. So looking at what are the mistakes that you made. So for me, for example, in Spanish, I made a mistake and it was quite funny at the time. And I said, my potatoes are coming to visit me. My potatoes, because in Spanish, potatoes and parents are very similar. It's just intonation. So papa and papa. So it's for an English speaker, it almost sounds the same until you start to develop that. And I made the mistake to say that my potatoes are coming to visit me. And I meant to say that my parents are coming to visit me, which now I'm laughing about and it's very funny. But at the time, I was quite embarrassed by that mistake. And I realized it doesn't mean I'm bad at speaking Spanish. It just means that that is a difficult sound and is one that I need to practice and spend some time. And any time that I go to talk about my parents, I have to remember the mistake and the intonation of, okay, this is how I say this is how I say potatoes, this is how I say parents. So it's really, I'm not a bad Spanish speaker, it's I made that one mistake. How can I now improve that so it doesn't happen again? Or if it does happen again, I'm so aware of that mistake that what comes out of my mouth is correct. Doesn't always happen, but it's realizing progress over perfection. So I wanted to share that one example of Spanish. Has anything ever happened like that for you in English, where you made a mistake with the pronunciation? And, for me, potatoes, parents in Spanish, that is one that gets me. And also when I hear that, if someone talks about, I don't always listen to the intonation. So now I'm also very careful when anyone is talking about that to get the context. Something I have to train my ear of listening and really understanding. So I know it's a common mistake that I make. So it's really looking at what is the common mistake or the specific mistake that you made, and how can you work to improve that one mistake? And I guess also recognizing your progress, recognizing and celebrating that achievement. The second time that happened, so I made that mistake and I was very embarrassed. The second time, I was then able to correct myself. And I felt so good about it, because in my head, I was going to make the mistake and I was like, no, that's not right. And what came out was actually correct. And really celebrating of, yes, last time I made a mistake, but now I'm making progress. And I can see that very small part of the language that I'm now improving. And I say that's really how I've been able to rebuild my confidence and continue to, is having, really celebrating any progress that I've made. So those are what I wanted to share with you today. Let me know if you have any questions or what you have thought about this. I would love to hear how you feel about this. What is something that you can celebrate? So we started looking at your weaknesses, but I think it would be really nice if you could share maybe some of your celebrations. What are things that you have done well? What progress have you made? That might be with your job, with your career, with the language. Maybe you're learning another language. What is some progress that you have made that you can share with us? Share your wins. I would love to hear them and celebrate you. So just to summarize some key takeaways, we really want to normalize our mistakes and know that making mistakes is a very essential part of language learning. And we really want to see the mistakes that we make as valuable learning experiences and see them as a way of developing and growing. And then also just, I guess, embrace that vulnerability and self-compassion and know that my mistakes are not tied to my worth, and being more self-compassionate and acknowledge your efforts and progress over perfection. And also, if you do ever feel like you want support and maybe you aren't that comfortable or confident, and another way I've really found that is so helpful and so valuable is being a part of a supportive network, a community, and knowing, it's not just me making these mistakes. And that's also another part that has helped me with my Spanish growth is I'm not alone. It's not just me. And really understanding that I'm not alone. We're in this together, and being part of a community I found to be so valuable and so helpful. And I know I have a few of my Fluent Club members here. Shout out to Taha and Roberto. I don't know if you're still watching, but they are part of my community. And I know that being part of a community is definitely something that can really support you. And knowing, it's okay to make mistakes. I see other people also making mistakes, and I'm not going to be negative towards them. Okay, let's see. Alexis is sharing. When I do sometimes pick different words to express something complex. Yeah, so I guess that's addressing, I asked you if you could share about something that you've done well, a celebration, picking different words to express something complex, definitely. And I 100% agree, you have to pick simpler words. It's a really good tactic, because what I find, and I shared about the experience of someone who reached out to me on LinkedIn, I think the issue was when she wanted to sound professional. Maybe she was trying to use a very particular word to explain something. And it was that one word that was causing her a lot of challenges. I'm only guessing here, but a lot of the times I want to use a more, professional way of saying this, or a more complex way of explaining something. And I'm a believer of making it easier for yourself and as simple as possible. Using simple words does not mean simple. It means, it's easier. You're making the language clearer and more concise. And it's definitely something that you can build on and improve. Like I said, it's a journey. But yeah, I love that, Alexis. It works, but it's not my ultimate goal when speaking. Okay. Yeah. And Taha said, yes, Taha is there. Hi, Taha. Shout out to Taha, who is in the Fluent Club community. Great to have you join. But yes, I truly believe that being part of a community and understanding that it's not just, I'm in a safe space to practice. My mistakes are accepted. They're completely normal, not just accepted, but they are expected. And I now realize that if I speak up or if I make mistakes, that it's part of my progress and my development. And anytime I realized that I was making a mistake, maybe I get some feedback. Sometimes that feedback is in a supportive environment of, you didn't say that right. This is a better way to say that. Sometimes that feedback is, you're in an interview and you don't get the job. And it's a really, not a nice feeling of failure, of I did so bad. But if that ever happens, it's looking at isolating the specific points and being able to make progress from that experience, from the mistakes that we made. So those are what I wanted to share with everybody today. Usually these coffee sessions last for around 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, but I think usually we're at the 40-minute mark now. So I will say 45 minutes is always a good amount of time. And it's so wonderful to have you all here and listening in. And yeah, great question. So Alexa said, how can I join the community that you mentioned? So I'm going to share the link with you in the comments, but if you go to fluentspeakers.co.uk, you will be able to, let me just add the link for you. If you go to fluentspeakers.co.uk/club, you can read all about the community. This is the link. At the moment, there is a wait list, but we are opening up very soon. So actually just in a couple of days. So if it is something that you would like to join, now is the perfect time. You will put your name on the wait list for now, but like I said, it is opening up very soon. So that is the Fluent Club community. Love to have you join us. Yeah, it's a really wonderful community of those who are working in an international environment or want to work in an international environment to support you, just really learning and improving your fluency, how to express yourself more confidently. And we have lots of different activities and ways to support you with different trainings. Actually, the sessions are today. So yes, you're welcome. Thank you, Alexis. But if anyone is watching this and would like to maybe learn more about the community, or also at the moment, I am putting together now this is specifically for those working in design and tech. So if you are working either as a designer or as a tech professional, I do have also another opportunity for those who would like to work closer together with me and to develop, really transform your English speaking skills. And I am putting together a course next month. And at the moment, we have the early bird pricing. So that does mean it's a 50% discount only for July. So if you join by, I think Monday is the last day. Yeah, Monday, the 31st of July, you will receive a 50% discount to join my group program, my group coaching program that comes with a digital course experience. Really excited. We've had a few members who have already joined us, and this is open to everybody who are working in design and tech. If you're interested to hear all about that, or want some more information, just send me a message. And we have some spots available at 50% discount, which works at around $300, and you get 8 weeks of group coaching, and I will share more information if you're interested. But yeah, that is we have just 1 week left if you're interested. But please send me a message. Also, if you have any questions about, if you're watching the replay, or you have any questions about anything that I mentioned today, anything to do with language learning or to improving your fluency in your speaking, or how to overcome a specific work challenge, feel free to send me a message. Either ask a question in the comments, or if you prefer to just send me a message, I will get back to you. I love hearing from you. And thank you so much for joining today. I will see you all next week, next Tuesday at the same time. I will be going live every single Tuesday. So I will see you soon. Thank you so much for joining. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Bye.